Congrats on getting beyond 1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of Easy Pay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond 1 million. Ryan Levesque, I appreciate you hanging out today, man. It's always good to see you.
Brad, it's awesome to hang out. You know, I love the fact that you and I live so close to one another, and yet we have to use the power of the internet to actually connect like this. It's kind of funny how the world works.
Well, in fairness, I live in Austin and you don't. So there's that.
Fair enough. I live in the greater Austin area. Keyword being greater than Austin, greater Austin area. But yeah, fair enough. Austin, Texas is a big place, and people don't realize, like, when you live in a city like Austin or in an area like Austin, geographically from one end to the other can be a couple hours to actually get from one end to the other. And I live in the north and you kind of live in the middle.
Yeah, and I also refer to anybody that lives past 12th Street downtown as living north. So, you know, my critique should not hold much weight here, but that's true. I do not get to see you in person as much as we probably should. Well, I appreciate carving out time, man. I'm excited to talk about a number of things with you, but you have a curious business to me for a lot of reasons. The ask method, I think, is what people know you for. And you have a book, Ask, and also a book, Choose, that have reached all of the status symbols you would want: New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestseller, etc. Inc. 500 CEO, lots of fun stuff. In addition, you are actually a certified AFOL, I've heard.
Adult fan of Lego. Yes, indeed, my friend. Some of us climb mountains and some of us play with plastic bricks. Some of us do both. I've got a mountain that I'll be climbing, as you and I have talked about. But yeah, that's my guilty pleasure passion. I've got 2 young boys, and so we kind of spent a lot of time building stuff. I think we built, at last count, over 100 different sets together. And much to my wife's chagrin, because we've run out of space to put these completed sets in our home.
Do you never tear them down? You just build them and you have these iconic Lego sets up all over the place?
We have a group of pretty iconic sets. But when my younger son was just a few years old, we had about 30 or so completed sets, and he made his way into the room where they were kept when the nanny was here. And I don't know if she fully appreciated the amount of work that goes into building these things. And we came home one day and it was like Godzilla had gone through like Metropolis and just destroyed all of these things. My older son, who was probably like 5 or 6 at the time, was just devastated. So we did have a bit of a rebuild. It was kind of like a, like the great earthquake of maybe 2000 and, I don't know, 15, 16, something like that, 18. So we did a bit of a rebuild. But yeah, we try to keep them just because, I don't know, why not?
That's great. These are learning lessons for your children.
Exactly.
While I'm derailing us, have you had any of those rebuilding sessions inside of business, or has it been steady growth for the Ask method over time?
Yeah. So what's really funny is, I've used Lego as a metaphor in a lot of different ways, both in what we teach in our company, but also in what we've experienced in our company. And one of the metaphors that I think is really appropriate, and it'll answer your question about what we've had to do in our business, is sometimes you have to break what you've built to build something better. And it's sort of like Lego, right? Like you have a certain number of Lego bricks, you have a table on which you're building your Lego, but at some point the table becomes full. Like there's just no more room. And if you want to build something better, you have to break what you've built. And it's counterintuitive. Most people think that you just keep building on top of what you've done, but sometimes the answer is take the pieces apart, put them in the bucket, and start over again. And there have been a few times in our company's history where we've done that. Like, for example, I'll give you a practical, real example. And I shared this in a mastermind that you and I have both spoken at and been part of before, where I shared the story of how we shut down a mastermind in our business that was doing about $2 million a year in revenue. So we had a high-level mastermind in our business that we sold for, at its peak, $40,000 a year. It was a $40,000 a year program. We were approaching 50 people in that program. And it reached this point where I realized that if we wanted to scale the business further, this was actually the thing that was the bottleneck in the business, because the format through which the mastermind was delivered could not expand beyond that. We would have had to just reimagine, rethink the whole thing. So we did a Seinfeld, and quite literally at our peak, we had a wait list of people waiting to come in the front of the room. The last day of the in-person mastermind, I stood up and I said, this is going to come to a surprise to many people in this room. But this session that we're in right here, right now today is the last session that this mastermind is ever going to have. We're actually ending it after today. And I had not leaked that to anybody. I mean, jaws were on the floor because people thought like this was like, why would you do this at your peak? And I think sometimes it's that scary thing, like we're afraid to go after great and giving up good. It's like people are afraid to give up good in order to go after great. And so we shut that down. We had a 50-person mastermind, and we replaced it with a coaching program that now has over 500 people in that program. So we shut a $2 million a year business division and replaced it with a more than $10 million a year business division over time. So I think it's scary to kind of sometimes cut off those things. But, if you studied Mike Michalowicz and the pumpkin principle and the idea that, you've got to cut the vines to have that one prize winning pumpkin, it's scary to cut the vines. It's scary to say no to things, and it's scary to shut things down. So that's a Lego metaphor. And sometimes you've got to break what you've built to build something better lesson that I took away. And I'll tell you, Brad, at the time, man, like it was one of the scariest things that I did. And certainly something that a lot of people said, dude, you're an idiot. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'll take your mastermind. Like, just give it to me. Like, I'll run this thing. But I realized that in order to get to that next level in our business, we had to make some strategic changes.
I have 17 questions. But I love fundamentally, I mean, you have two different things there that strike me. One is kind of the line that you're driving, which is closing something that isn't optimal that's misaligned with future goals, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, it sounds like it was that you felt like you could have a bigger business there, and for what energy and effort was going into and maintenance was going into the $2 million a year, it wasn't in alignment with the other business activities that you had. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a cap in growth. That was one thing. And there was also a cap in format. So at the time, we were making a strategic shift in our business away from call it a personality-driven business around a human being, which I found not all masterminds, but many masterminds are built around that model. There's a magnetizing, charismatic leader at the front of the room that brings a group of people together inside that space. And we were shifting away from that model of built around a person, right? Built around one human being, to built around a methodology and building a coaching program that would scale and ultimately serve a lot more people, that was not limited to, being because of, one person, but being because of a methodology, a technology that could reach a lot more people. So it was a growth ceiling bit, and it was also a strategic shift in the kind of sort of intention and direction of the business as well.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that struck me was, I think that is an example of it possibly, but there are other areas, and I'm curious how you think about this from a software perspective, and we probably should back up and talk about your software product and the Ask Method and how it works. But I am at a point where we are bloated from a tech perspective. And so we are ripping things apart and redesigning. And when you talk about the table being full, I go through so we've lived in, we've got a whole bunch of custom software that we wrote, and then we also have Salesforce as a backbone for our CRM. The number of bizarre workflows, email sequences, automations that exist in there, it's astounding. And on the one hand, the meticulous, pragmatic portion of me wants to go through every single one, audit every single one, see what they're doing, what they're not doing. But then what you just said is actually where we landed, which is a lot of this I'm just going to sweep off the table and put in the trash. And I'm going to trust that I can rebuild based on the experience that we've had. I can create new stuff. And the lessons that came from everything that's on the table are going to get pulled into the future. And might I miss something? Might we have to rebuild it over time? Yeah. But I think that the lessons and the lessons will come into play when you build something clean also.
We've seen that for sure. And technology is tricky. It's in some ways it is analogous to real estate. Sometimes it's easier to just level the block and replace it with a state-of-the-art building than it is to try to preserve the asbestos-ridden, rotten wood skeleton that just can't be preserved. And it served itself for a time and a place, but it's just no longer the best and highest use of that resource. So we've seen this in our technology business as an example. So, our business is, we have a five-time Inc. 5000 company where we teach a marketing methodology known as the Ask method, which you've alluded to, and then a technology backbone behind that to actually implement that methodology. And when we built the technology side of our business, we have gone through, I think now 4 iterations of the software. And our current iteration of the software is now used by 30 million people around the world, end users. 12,000 quiz funnels have been built on our technology. And we have a tremendous amount of data, tremendous amount of information that we've gathered along the way. But it's not our first sort of iteration of the technology. We started, the first thing that we ever created was a WordPress plugin that sort of was the caveman or crayon version of what it is that we do now. And it was a start. It certainly wasn't in line with my end vision for where we could take things, but it was a start. And at some point that no longer served us. And we said, well, there's so many limitations around this. We're just going to scrap this and then create the, second iteration of the software. And this is kind of over almost 10-year period. So it's taken us time to get here. But I think, like you said, I totally agree with you. Every step along the way, you learn things. Like, we're going to keep this in generation 3, but we're going to get rid of this in generation 3 or 4. So, and sometimes those are tough decisions. Like, sometimes you've got these nostalgic aspects of your business. They're like, totally. I can't get rid of this. I can't get rid of this. Like, you have memories attached to it, and it starts to become burdensome. So it's never easy to make those calls.
No, it's not. But I think it's a good lesson. So tell me, just the recap for anybody that doesn't know, what is the Ask method? I know you probably never answered that question before, but I think it's probably a good foundation before we get into bucket, because I want to talk about that and actually the business process through that. Give us the background on Ask.
Yeah, so the Ask method is a marketing methodology whereby when someone lands on your website, instead of selling to them right away or trying to push them into your webinar, your challenge, or your e-commerce product, instead, when someone lands on your website, you begin by asking a series of questions so you can understand that person's situation. And just like a doctor, diagnose and prescribe the best next step. And it's a way of having that one-on-one conversation that you would probably naturally have with another person if you were in person with them, but having your website have that conversation with 100 or 1,000 people a day on autopilot, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, on the surface, it sounds very simple, but the reality is there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of psychology that's involved to not only asking the right questions, but having the right premise through which you're inviting someone to answer this information. And the best way to sort of understand what it is that you're building is you're building the equivalent of a quiz funnel when someone lands on your website, an assessment funnel. You're asking questions, you're capturing that information that you then are able to use to inform your content, your copy, your follow-up, the way in which you target people through paid advertising, remarketing, the case studies, the examples that you put in front of people. It allows you to do real-time lead scoring of your leads in real time. So if you are passing that information to a Salesforce or a HubSpot, connecting with that back-end CRM, and that at the highest level is the process in a nutshell. But again, we can peel away the layers of the onion, and there's a lot of nuance and a lot of sort of best practices within that.
Tell me about tell me about that approach when you are just starting versus that approach when you are, say, like today. If you today, Ryan, as a multi 8-figure person, were implementing the Ask method, which obviously you have, how does a business at that size approach that versus the brand new business?
Yeah. So, brand new business, let's say you literally do not have a business and you're starting completely from scratch. If you were to open up a traditional business, like say you open up a restaurant, and you've got one of two scenarios. Scenario one, you're just going to open up the restaurant and open the doors, cross your fingers, and hope someone shows up. Or option number two, you build a line that stretches outside the building around the parking lot. So that way, when you open the doors and you say, dinner's ready, that line of people are going to run right in. Of course, it's obvious that you want to start with scenario number two. And using a quiz funnel to build a pre-launch list of qualified and pre-qualified buyers before you open up the doors is the most effective way to ensure that when you open your doors of your proverbial restaurant or store, that you're going to launch with success. And so we have businesses that do this all the time. And I'll just give you just one example just to kind of bring it home. So I think of, for example, let's say Dr. Tangi Watkins. So Dr. Tangi was a medical doctor, before COVID. COVID happened. She's at the front lines. She kind of said, all right, I'm kind of done with this. I'm burnt out and disenfranchised with, public health and the way medicine is being administered. I want to do something else with my life. And so she decided to build a coaching practice. She wanted to become a coach and coach other people how to become more successful in their careers. The only problem is she had no website, no business, no experience, no product, nothing, right? But she created a quiz. What is your success alignment score? So identifying how aligned someone is in their career. And she learned about the power of a quiz funnel. And she had about 4,000 or 5,000 people, I think, go through the quiz. And the next month, she launches her coaching practice. And right on the back of that, set herself up to make $20,000 a month in recurring revenue from day one, like just straight on launch. And the reason why she was able to do that is because she knew more than just a person's name and email address. She did more than just build up a pre-launch list. She had all of this incredibly valuable data. So that's an example of someone launching completely from scratch. Now, let's say you're a large established business right now and you're looking for maybe a few things. You want to better understand your database, better understand the current leads and customers that you have inside your CRM. And you also want to grow your business. You want more leads. You want leads at a cheaper cost that convert at a higher rate, whereby you can succeed in this post-iOS 14.5 environment where you can no longer rely on third-party data to have Facebook and Google serving you up on a silver platter, super targeted, highly qualified, tightly defined audiences that you were dependent on for the last decade. You might be saying, where do you go next? What do you do next? A quiz funnel is the answer for both of those scenarios. And I'll give you an example of a company that you might be familiar with this company called Snack Nation. So Snack Nation is, so
I know them well.
Andy Mackinson and those guys. So Snack Nation, physical e-commerce business, disrupted by COVID when COVID happened in the world. For anyone not familiar, they send a curated box of snacks to your home or office based on things like your dietary preferences, your tastes, food allergies, just what's most important to you, number of people in your home or office or whatever, right? And so they were selling in a traditional e-commerce format, and they decided to test out a quiz funnel. And the quiz funnel was designed to really ask a series of questions to really recommend the right next product. And then also with that information, they use it to serve up more highly qualified leads to their sales team. So they don't necessarily get on the phone with everybody who fills out a quiz. They use real-time lead scoring to send the best quality leads to a salesperson, medium quality leads to a nurture sequence, and low quality leads that are not a fit for their business, they send them elsewhere. And so on the back of this strategy, they were able to more than triple their sales in their business by switching to the strategy. They cut their sales cycle from something like 14 days to 8 days, so almost in half. And they were able to increase the average order value by more than double because they're ultimately able to diagnose and prescribe the right version of their product, the right outcome based on the answers to these questions. So, that's an example of a, company that I think at their peak, we're at number 24 on the Inc. 500 list, fastest growing companies in America, just on the back of this strategy. So, that's an example of a company using that strategy to scale a very successful business, 8-figure business, to that next level and multiple.
So I see the ask method as like you gave us the example of launching the business, curating a list to do it. Obviously, you still have the traffic consideration, how you get people into that mechanism.
Yes.
When you get to some reasonable scale, once you're established, you've proven your USP, you a product market fit. At that point, Snack Nation, let's take that as an example. Is your suggestion, or in their case, however you want to take it, that is the top of funnel for everything? Is that part of the marketing mix? Is that one of the lead magnets that are out there that helps? How do you see that?
Yeah. So from my perspective, the quiz funnel should arguably be the top of funnel strategy across everything in your business. And that's exactly what Snack Nation did when they went through this process. They made this top of funnel for everything. And I'll talk a little bit about the reason for that. And I want to frame it in terms of what's happening in the world right now based on the sort of the environment that we live in post iOS 14.5, right? In this, what many are calling this new Web 3.0 era of digital advertising, digital marketing online. So I'll kind of talk about what's gotten us to where we are here today, and then I'm going to get a little bit technical, but I really want to make this tactical and actionable. So it's not just theory. It's really what's working right now.
Awesome.
So if we look at iOS 14.5, mid 2021, Apple made the seminal announcement that they were no longer going to allow companies to use third-party cookies on the iOS operating system, and that really cut off Facebook at the knees, because Facebook's entire business model has been built on the fact that Facebook not only knows what we do when we're on Facebook, what its users are doing when they're browsing Facebook, what groups they're participating in, what posts they're liking, what videos they're watching. Of course, they know that. But what's made them remarkably powerful and effective is that Facebook, up until 2021, had access to virtually all of your browsing history as well. So Facebook would know the websites you're visiting, know what you're buying on different websites, know where you're spending time, not only on platform, but off platform. So Facebook could say, oh, you're a hiking company and you're looking for, someone who's in the market for a backpack. Well, we know this guy. He went to 5 backpack websites. He's part of 3 hiking groups, backpacking groups on Facebook. He watched this video here on platform and off platform. This guy's ready to buy. We'll serve this guy up to you on a silver platter. All you need to do is show him your stuff. And we got fat on the land. The last 7-8 years, we got fat on the land depending on this third-party data. But then Apple made the big announcement and said, we're no longer going to let that happen anymore. So quite literally overnight, that information source that was fed through like this umbilical cord to Facebook got cut off. And Facebook now only had access to on-platform data, the way in which you interact on Facebook. Couple that with the fact that more and more people don't want to spend time on Facebook. So fewer people on Facebook, coupled with no longer access to third-party data, it's meant that as digital advertisers online, we've had to make moves. We've had to make a shift in the way that we operate. So where we've relied in the sort of Web 2.0 era. If Web 1.0 was like first generation of the internet, anyone can have a website, information democratization. Web 2.0, the advent of big tech, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these big aggregators where the data is aggregated in a few handful of places. Web 3.0, we're seeing once again this decentralization of information. So now we're in this new era where you must have a first and zero-party data strategy. Now, first-party data, just to set some definitions, that's information that you track on your website for people, how they're behaving in the background. So that's like Google Analytics, right? You're tracking what people click on, where they spend time, but that's done in the background. Zero-party data is data that your users are explicitly and voluntarily sharing with you and knowingly sharing. I.e., you have a quiz on your website and people are answering that assessment or quiz or the questions that you put in front of people so that you can better sell to them, but ultimately better serve them. Now, here's where it all starts to come together. Facebook does not have access to that third-party data anymore. However, when you use the right technology and you have the right strategy, you can capture this zero-party data on your own website, and you can feed that back to Facebook and say, the people who have told me on my website that they're going on a hiking trip and they're looking to buy a backpack and their budget is $200 or more and their favorite color is red, that data profile, find me more people like that. And Facebook can say, no problem, because you're feeding that information back to them. So if you're not doing that right now, and Facebook has actually come out and said this, your cost per acquisition is going to be 3 to 4 times higher than what it was pre-iOS 14.5. So if you were spending $5 a lead pre-iOS 14, expect to pay $25 a lead. Now, what we're seeing in our user base, because again, we have a technology platform, 12,000 quiz funnels, 30 million people go through it, 200 million data points every single year. What we found is that people who are using this strategy have been able to cut their cost for advertising down by 30 to as much as 90%. Why is that? Because where the rest of the world is struggling to figure out this new game, like we've moved from flag football to tackle football. Much of the world is still trying to play flag football right now. But when the rules changed in 2021 and became tackle football, it's only been a small handful of advertisers who have made the moves necessary to have their own zero-party data strategy where they can feed the information back. And by it's not just Facebook, it's also the Google ecosystem as well. So Google and YouTube, and they have their own version of a conversion optimizer, which is called Performance Max. And with Facebook, you have what's called the CAPI or the CAPI, the Conversion API, and you've got Performance Max with Google. So they each have their own massive super brains, these AI super brains that you are either taking advantage right now and pumping that information in so that you can get the right quality traffic to your business, or you're not, and you will lose. So I know that was a bit of a tirade on this topic, but it is the single most important thing that any business who generates leads and or customers online needs to be putting in place right here, right now, this year, 2022, is that zero-party data strategy. And I'm not talking about just knowing a person's email address. That's not enough information. You need a strategy to gather this data so that you can build a rich data profile and have an accurate data match. So that way, when you're advertising and serving those clients, you have the strategy in place.
Okay. So that was a lot of info around the benefit to the Ask method and quiz funnels. And I think obviously it's relevant, right? The iOS 14 plus updates have radically changed e-commerce advertising. As a credit card processing company, we watch that, right? And we see the impact on people. Also, there are lots of ways to get data, right? And the zero-party data, the other question around zero-party data for me is that I have to bring up or ask is, and this does not negate anything you just said, but there are situations where people are not going to volunteer the same data that you could farm. And an obvious and maybe not relevant example in the moment is if you ask people what their porn consumption behaviors are, that's not going to be as relevant as their browser history, right? So the question is, how do you make sure with quiz funnels, what is it about that process? What are the questions you're supposed to ask? How do you ensure that you actually get relevant data through that?
Exactly. You're hitting the nail on the head. And, it's garbage in, garbage out. And as they say in life, the answers are easy, but the questions are hard. In the same way that, the quality of your life is in many ways determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis, right? For people who are less evolved, you say, why me? Like, why am I having to go through this? Like they have a shitty life, right? Versus people that ask more evolved questions, they have a more fulfilling existence. And the same thing is true with your marketing. If you ask bad questions, you're going to get the wrong answers and you can get misleading answers. So that's where we get to start peeling away some of the layers of the onion here and talk about that. This is, at this point in the conversation, Brad, people usually have one of two reactions. They either say, oh my gosh, this is, how hard could this be? This is super easy. You just ask a few questions on your website and, what kind of backpack do you want? Oh, here's the backpack, right? Or they say, this is so complicated, like, how do I actually put this into play? And the truth is somewhere in between. So you're absolutely right. There are certain questions that you cannot ask because you will not get an accurate piece of information. Like, for example, you can't ask people what they want. People don't know what they want. It's proven time and time again. And there's so many quotes attributed to many famous people. Henry Ford was famous for saying, hey, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. I don't think he ever said it, by the way, but it's been attributed to him. Steve Jobs has been quoted as saying, people don't know what they want until you actually show it to them. So you can't just go through the front door and ask people what they want. You have to ask questions through the side door to get at the information. But the reason why zero-party data is so critically important is because the world we live in right now is one where the default state of mind online, and there's the Edelman Trust Index that has proven this out. For the first time in history, the default state of being online is a state of distrust. The majority of people go online and their default state is, I don't trust anything. I don't trust what I'm seeing. I don't trust what I'm reading. I don't trust what I'm hearing about. I just do not trust anything. And that's distrust that's across every facet of society, right? It's government distrust. It's distrust in public health. It's distrust in our financial system. And we've seen that play out with alternative forms of currency and the whole cryptocurrency movement. It's distrust in big tech and big data. And so the response to that is Apple has attempted to commercialize this by putting privacy as their number one USP. This is what we care about more than anything else. Now, they don't really care about privacy. They're just not sharing the data with other companies. They still are gathering all this information. So lest we think that we're being well taken care of by, the angels at Apple, that's not the true story at all. And the same thing is true across every nation, every developed nation around the world. We saw in 2018, I believe, when GDPR came out for the first time ever in Europe, in the EU, that there was this corner of the world that was this nuisance problem, like, GDPR, I don't have to worry about that. I'm not in the EU. Fast forward to today, the current state of the world right now, there are 30 states in the United States that have either passed or in the process of passing a GDPR equivalent form of legislature, which means that first-party data that you're talking about, just tracking a person's browser history in the background, is not something that we will even be able to do. Not to mention how effective it may be. It's not something that's in the cards. It's not going to be an option to us. So again, flag football to tackle football. You might have gotten really good at pulling the flag off the person's face, but we're all going to have to learn how to tackle. So the way you shift is moving from first party to zero party. Now you're right. You can't monitor some of the same data that's going to be more accurate. So you've got to think creatively. So for example, asking what people want is out the window. You cannot do that. Asking open-ended information in the form of a marketing quiz is a non-starter. You do not want to do that because you're going to absolutely kill conversion. So there's some best practices, Brad, that I'll share. First best practice is you want to keep your questions to between 5 and 12. 5 and 12 questions. How do we know this? Because we've studied over 12,000 quiz funnels built in our technology, and we know the most effective, the most successful all fall within this range. You ask for too little information, you're not able to give people an accurate diagnosis. You ask for too much information, and you're going to scare people off because nobody's going to, answer 50 questions when they're, in line at the bank on their cell phone or at a traffic light, browsing the internet while they're waiting for the light to turn green. You only have a few minutes of time to gather this information. So we've learned some best practices along the way. That's just one example of things you do want to do and things that you don't want to do. But you're right. The game has changed. The world has changed. Being able to spy on someone's dinner conversation by hacking the microphone on their phone is going to be a more accurate story. But people have decided to trade convenience for their privacy. That is the world that we live in today. Privacy is now more important than convenience, and people have voted both literally with the votes in the legislation that's been passed, and they voted with the moves that they're making, deciding to get off Facebook, for example, because they no longer want a company that knows all and sees all in their life.
So unless you have a hookup with the U.S. government, and then you can get all of the microphone data, et cetera. It's all good.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, all relevant. I want to pull out of that and ask you a couple questions about how you are running your business right now, because the Ask method's been around for quite a while at this point, and you've gone through a couple different paths. You created a software company, and I want you to mention that because I know you have something coming up on that as well. But I have to ask about sort of the decision to do the software company. So earlier we talked about this mastermind that you ran that was making $2 million a year, and presumably you were even having fun doing it. People liked it. You found it to be misaligned or distracting from the core business. So first, quick question: are you running Bucket.io, which is the software company right now, or do you have somebody else running it in the company?
Yeah. So when we launched our technology company a few years ago, the original vision was that we were going to have two entirely separate organizations. We were going to have a training and education company teaching sort of the marketing methodology that we've just dipped our toe in here, and then a separate technology company, entirely separate. And what we found really over the last 3 or 4 years is that these two companies are so aligned with one another that it makes sense to have a senior leadership team that sits on top of both of those organizations. So if we look at our company here today, we will approach 100 employees, not that long into the future. We have a senior leadership team of about 7 people who sit on top of both organizations that oversee the operations of both. We run our company on the rocket fuel model. So we have a visionary integrator paradigm. I am in that visionary seat. I have a partner in the business who is our integrator, our chief operating officer, and everybody in the company reports into him. Technically, he's my only report that I have, but the reality is we're partners, and I more likely orbit the system as opposed to sitting within it. So originally the vision was to have an entirely separate company, but what we found is that it's a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, sharing not only back office sort of support functions, but having a senior leadership team that oversees both organizations so that everything that we do is aligned and not, pulling the companies in 2 different directions, but pulling the companies in a combined, cohesive direction that is more successful commercially.
Got it. Okay, so my question for you is, when you're going down that path and thinking, hey, I've got this idea. We've been building these quiz funnels for a long time. We're using other people's tools. Wouldn't it be cool to build our own?
Right.
Certainly, that was a dedicated amount of time, energy, mental bandwidth, staffing, cost, all this stuff to build a software company, which, by the way, if you're not involved in software development, building a software company is significantly more difficult than if you are a developer, coder, et cetera. But why did you choose to do that? And in retrospect, do you think that it's possible that if you put the same energy into the core business, you would have moved the core business further?
It's an interesting question. And the way that I'll answer that is, you can only make decisions based on your best thinking and information at that time. None of us have a crystal ball, right? So, there's so many things that we do where we say, gosh, if I'd have known what I know now, I probably would have done things differently. But you wouldn't be where you are now if you didn't make the decisions that you did that led you to this very point. So if I go back to when we were at that fork in the road, what we found, and this is going back a few years, is that we had this methodology that was incredibly powerful. And before doing what we do now, we would partner with large businesses to actually implement this on a bespoke basis. And these were partnerships. And these are partnerships that led to, in some cases, 9-figure exits on the back of building these quiz funnels as a backbone of these businesses. We did one in the golf space that led to an exit to NBC and the Golf Channel that was incredibly successful. We did one in the business funding space that was branded as Loan Builder, and we were acquired by PayPal for $180 million on the back of this strategy. So I learned firsthand that this can be incredibly powerful and successful, but in all of these cases, we were doing custom development. So building up custom apps, custom development on a bespoke basis that just put it out of the reach of most businesses out there. A project would be $250,000 for us. We would get a revenue share. These were multi 6 and 7 figure over time contracts that were just incredibly lucrative for us and for the businesses that we would partner with, but out of reach for most small business owners. So we realized that we had one of two directions that we could go in. We could continue working with a small handful of larger businesses that had these 6 and 7 figure budgets to implement something like this. And we could steer the smaller businesses to, just use, I don't want to disparage any company, but, just use XYZ survey tool and you can just figure it out. But the reality is those tools did not have the necessary infrastructure to do what we're talking about right here. They're not designed for that. SurveyMonkey is an incredible tool. Survey Gizmo is an incredible tool for doing market research. That's great. There are funnel tools out there in the market that are great for building one size fits all funnels, right? Like just the simple, you've got a landing page to a offer page to a thank you page. Great. They're great for that. But to put together sophisticated algorithms that are steering people in one of several directions based on a combination of answers requires a specialized tool. It's not a hammer that's going to do that job. You need a scalpel and you need a specialized piece of technology to do that. So we were faced with this decision that we could either say, hey, pay this amount of money and we'll custom develop something for you, or, you're SOL and you can just use whatever's out there and good luck because none of it's designed to do this job. And we didn't like either of those paths. So we chose path number 3, which was biting the bullet and deciding if there's nothing on the market that can do what needs to be done, let's build our own technology. And gosh, man, I'll tell you, if I would have known how much money it takes to do this, how much time it takes to do this, I don't know if I would have had the courage to go through with it because it's very expensive. It takes a lot of time to do it and do it well. And the last thing they'll say is we've bootstrapped our business. So at this moment in time, I own 100% of our business and funded it with just the money in my piggy bank and just kept bankrolling the profits. Now, knowing what I now know and how much quicker you can grow by taking, private equity and venture capital to grow more quickly and defray and pass along some of that financial risk, I may have done things differently. But at that time, that was my best thinking. I said, I value control over speed. I want to control the direction of the business. I want to control our own destiny. And we made the decision to do that. And that's kind of brought us to where we are here today.
Yeah, I love hearing the path. And I'm with you. I'm also 100% bootstrapped. And I also feel like were I to do it again, I may make different decisions.
Right.
Yeah. Do you, and there's also, look, you alluded to this before, earlier in the conversation, but to not look at the current moment through the lens of I am in the best place I possibly could be.
Right.
And I have no regrets because I wouldn't be here unless I took the path that I took, I think is a somewhat foolish perspective.
Right.
It's just not serving, at least for me. That's my take on life and on business. That said, do you think you could create the same thing another way?
Absolutely. I think with the confidence that I now have, having been here, having done that, having done it, I think that, there are other paths. And I think for me, when I first started this business, the first month in business, we made $370. $370. And
good job.
I know, right? Yeah, congratulations, right? But this is in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. Company I was working for was about to go out of business. I was about to lose my job. My wife was in grad school at the time, and we were in the middle of our ramen noodle and bologna sandwich days. Like we had napkins on the floor, 2 lawn chairs in the living room, literally the chairs that you sit in a soccer game. Like we got one of them when we opened up our business bank account, and my wife convinced the bank to give us a second one because we were 2 people. Like we each needed a chair. That's how we started. And so those days are still fresh in my memory. And I didn't have the confidence that I now have, having done it, right? And like the way you get confidence is by taking action, and the way you take action is break things down into small bite-sized pieces and just start on that first step. And so, is there another path to do it? Absolutely. And in a parallel universe, I would love to see what would have happened if instead of in those early days focused on bootstrapping and running lean and just cutting our cloth everywhere and just focusing on that, to bringing on investors and selling other financial backers on this vision for what could be built, and building something that maybe could be 10 times what we've been able to build in size and scope and impact and revenue and profit and every measure that you can think of. But I don't think that way. Like I think I'm very grateful for the lessons learned, the mistakes made, and everything that's gotten us to this point. Because what I'm most excited about, I'm like most entrepreneurs, I am very much a look forward kind of guy. Just what's next, and I just see so much possibility, so much opportunity. I'm very excited for the disruption that we're seeing in the world right now. Because when I started this company in 2008, it was in the middle of the world financial crisis. People were losing their careers, losing their jobs. We were in a global recession, and we started this business at a time that most people were, hiding in the closet. And I think we're entering another era that is very similar to that, where there's going to be massive disruption, new change. I started the business in a time when companies like Uber were just, being imagined. And think about how much the world has changed. Think about pre-Uber, what life was like that, just that one technology, or Airbnb, or just any of these technologies that are staples in our life. I think we're in an era right now where we're going to see the next Uber, the next Airbnb, that next iteration of technology that's going to disrupt the world in a huge and massive way. And I have 15,000 ideas that I don't have the time to implement, like I'm sure you do as well. But I'm excited to maybe pick one or two of them and run with them for the next 10 years.
That's awesome. Well, also, I think that one of the things that I love about being able to talk to you and talk to people, business owners in general that have reached a certain level of success, is that everybody's got some unique path. And the lessons that you get out of it are from the challenges through the path, right? And so you go through the venture-backed route or the PE route, your hurdles are different and you get different lessons. And I value those too. And I love hearing those stories. For me personally, obviously, the bootstrap path and the connection that you have to it and the thought process hits home. What I want to talk about the new software product, but I also, before I do, we've talked a lot about the Ask method and how it gets put into play when you're small versus when you're bigger. What is your current client acquisition strategy for your company, for the Ask method, for Bucket? How do you approach that? Where do you get traffic, and how do you get them through the funnel?
Well, it's I think it would be out of integrity to be doing anything other than precisely what we spent this conversation talking about. I mean, we use the Ask method. We use our own business as a laboratory before we teach anything or before we incorporate anything into our public-facing technology. So tell me about the questions, right? So tell me about what it is that you're asking and how you distill to find somebody that presumably, let's start with your avatar. Who's your target market here? Yeah, so we have multiple quiz funnels that we use in our business for different avatars and different segments of our market. So for example, for early stage businesses, we have a quiz. You can see it yourself. It's choosequiz.com, which is all about how to choose the right business model for you. So we help people make a very important choice, which is what type of business should they start? We take people through an assessment, they answer a series of questions, and then we steer them on one of several paths based on that information. For businesses that are a little bit further along, we have a quiz funnel that helps determine what marketing funnel is right for you. So this very conversation that we're having right now, what should you be using? What traffic source should you be focused on? So helping to answer all of those questions. And you can see that at takethefunnelquiz.com. So that's another example. We're launching a brand new quiz that I'm very, very excited about, which is about how Web 3.0 ready is your business. So with all these changes that we've talked about with iOS 14, with iOS 15, which we haven't even spoken about, and what's happening next, with the world of blockchain and cryptocurrency and NFTs and just everything that's happening in the world right now, how ready is your business to succeed in this third era of digital advertising? When I talk to most businesses are not aware at the scale and scope of the changes that are happening beneath the surface, right beneath our feet right now. So we have a quiz that we're launching, theweb3quiz.com, to figure out how Web 3.0 ready you are in your business for more established businesses that have succeeded in the previous paradigm, but are maybe struggling along the way. So we have half a dozen right now, as we speak, different quiz funnels. Those are 3 examples right now in our business that we use as our acquisition strategy. And it's the reason why we're able to grow and scale in the way that we're growing. It's the way our clients are doing the same thing. So I would be, out of integrity if we were using anything other than what we teach and our own technology to drive the engine of growth in our own business.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So help me break that down a little bit. So let's take one of them. Mm-hmm. Let's take the new one. Let's take the Web3, right? Mm-hmm. So what comes out the other end, and what questions? Where do you get the people in the first place? Where do you get traffic? And then what are a few of the questions that help you sort it? And then what comes out the other end, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, so great question. So I'll answer the first question first. So where do we drive traffic to our quizzes? And the reality is we have clients who drive traffic in all sorts of different channels. So everything from, they use podcasts, incidentally, to drive traffic to their to their quizzes, to LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Google Display, Google Search, Instagram, Pinterest, blog traffic, email traffic. I mean, anywhere that you drive traffic, you can drive it to a quiz because it's a universal promise. Instead of, click this link to get my free ebook, it's click the link below to get your results, right? To find out which path is right for you or find out which funnel is right for you. So it's a universal promise. Now, in our business, we focus our effort on where 85% of the available ad inventory and traffic is available online, and that is the Facebook ecosystem and the Google ecosystem. So on Facebook, we drive traffic through predominantly Facebook, to a lesser extent, Instagram. In the Google ecosystem, we are having a ton of success on YouTube as a advertising platform and a marketing platform. And then we're also using the Google Display Network pretty extensively in our business. But we also use Google Search in some ways as well. So if I were to do the 80-20, that's where we drive the majority of traffic in our business, through the Facebook and Google ecosystems. And the reason for that is they have the 2 smartest AI brains, if you want to think about it that way, in the world when it comes to available data. The Facebook AI, which is not as powerful as it once was a little over a year ago, and then the Google AI, which is still incredibly powerful. So that's what we drive in our business.
Sorry. So and to be clear, the ads that you're running, is the promise of the ad or that you're going to take a quiz? Or is it driving to the site and then they're shown a quiz? What's the messaging of the ads?
Yeah, so the messaging is around the quiz itself. So let's take, for example, the Choose quiz, right? So thinking about starting a business, there are 17 major business models you can choose from online. Which one's right for you? Take this assessment to find out now. So that's the promise of the Choose quiz.
So you are selling the quiz, right? You're selling the quiz, and then by proxy or directly, the outcome of the quiz that you're going to get out.
So let's fast forward to the end. So these are, we talk about the next steps on the back of the quiz. The big mistake that people make in terms of presenting their offer post quiz is they think, oh, how hard could it be? I'm just going to slap a few questions on my website and buy my product. The reality is you have to think about the segue in terms of how you deliver value after the quiz. You have to deliver on your promise. Do not create a fake quiz. There are a lot of software solutions out there. There are a lot of businesses out there that effectively say, a quiz, this will work. Let's just send people a couple of questions. We'll send them all in the same direction and we'll say, buy my stuff. It doesn't work like that. You're going to erode credibility. You're going to lose trust with your audience. You have to deliver value. So post-quiz, you're giving people their results. You're explaining what those results mean. You're giving people what we call the Band-Aid fix. The paradigm that we teach is Band-Aid cure. Band-Aid is the free results that you give people after they take your quiz. Cure is the next thing that you want them to do that is related to your paid product or service. It could be to buy your product right then and there. If you sell a higher priced product, it might be to watch an educational marketing event like a workshop or a webinar. If you are in the client acquisition business, it might be to book a call with your sales team or with your individual. For example, for your business, Brad, an example of a quiz would be, what payment solution is right for you? There's so many different options out there between, PayPal and Square and Stripe and Venmo, and there are a million merchant accounts. And are they all the same? How do you decide which one's right for you? Well, we put together this free assessment to help you identify the right payment solution for your business based on the transaction size, the transaction value, how long you've been in business, the seasonality of your business, and all these other factors that will recommend the right solution for you. Answer a few simple questions, click the button below. We'll see you on the other side. Now, on the other side is where you're actually adding value. You're not just saying, buy this. You're saying, based on your answers, the little that we know about you, this is what we're seeing. And that can be the perfect segue to your cure, which is, now the next step is to fill in the blank. The next step is to hop on a call with one of our specialists who will be able to talk about your business in more detail. And we'd love to invite you to schedule that call right here, right now. That's the cure. So Band-Aid, what you deliver for free. Cure is what you are trying to sell people, your paid product or solution, on the back end of the quiz. And so we do the same thing in our business. Like, we actually eat our own dog food. It's almost like the movie Inception, where it's like we use a quiz funnel to sell a quiz funnel. So we actually use our methodology and technology to sell the thing that we're teaching and that the technology delivers on. And for many people, it is sort of that meta observation of, like, I just experienced one of these in action. So our business is a little bit unique in that way, but your business, just in the way that we just, spitballed right now, I could see that being incredibly powerful as a top of funnel strategy to drive people into your EPD business.
So for you, what comes out the other end is segmentation around different actions. Are some of them, and what I think and what I heard was that some of them are, hey, we should get on a call right now. Some of them are, here's a webinar to watch, or here's more information.
Yep.
And some of them might be, an email nurture sequence or whatever. But those actions are going to be dictated by the questions that come through the quiz.
Yeah, absolutely. And every business is different, right? If you sell one product or service, let's say you sell one thing in your business and one thing only, you might be asking, well, why would I use one of these things? Well, you can reframe that one offer in different ways based on a person's situation, right? Let's just say, for example, let's say you help, you're in the childhood education market, as an example. Just knowing that someone is a parent, a teacher, or a school administrator, like who they are, just knowing that one piece of information will allow you to reframe your solution based on what it is based on the person on the other end of that equation. So even if you sell one product or service. Now, if you sell different things in your business, you can use a quiz funnel to steer people to the right product. Let's say you've got, you sell, business consulting packages. And you might have a different package if someone is a startup, if they are, 7 figures or 8 figures. So knowing just where someone is in their development as a company, you might sell a different package solution based on who they are. So if you've got one product that can be reframed, this is something that you can use. If you've got multiple products, this is something that you can use. And the thing that I'll say is, if you are ever thinking about selling your company someday, the single most valuable asset that you can add to your business to increase the enterprise value overnight is data. The reason why these big tech companies are as valuable as they are is because of the massive amount of data that they have access to. If you want that data for yourself in your own business, use this strategy to have your own incredibly valuable warehouse of data that you've developed. It's the reason why companies like, Warby Parker in the glasses industry was able to overnight disrupt that industry, because they had so much data. There's an insurance company that is just overnight became a massive disruptor in the health insurance space called Health IQ, that basically built their entire business on the back of a quiz funnel. You see companies in weight loss selling mattresses, getting the sleep score is built on this strategy, by the way. Skincare companies use this to evaluate what skincare product is right for you. Makeup companies are using this. So you can find massive $100 million, billion-dollar companies in almost every industry who are using this as part of their acquisition strategy to increase the enterprise value of their business. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it. I've been part of 2 9-figure exits that have been built on the backbone of this. This has been the backbone of the strategy that's led to those transactions. So having access to this data, if you want to increase the enterprise value, if you want to get another turn or two on that multiple when you sell your company, add a data element to your business like this, and it's the fastest way to get there.
Yeah, well, that speaks to actually what I was going to say too, which is that as you collect, you mentioned a lot of different benefits to doing it, as is your job of the promoter of the Ask Method and Bucket, et cetera. One of them is that you, even if you're selling the same product, you might be speaking to a different person, and knowing who you're speaking to also allows you to talk to them in a different way.
Correct.
Similarly, you chose just now to speak to an established business about a potential exit, knowing that our audience are those people. And you didn't spend your time talking about the brand new entrepreneur that's trying to get off the ground. But you don't have that information unless you collect it somewhere.
Precisely.
So I love that. Well, I know that we are coming up on time. Tell me a little bit about, you've got new software coming out. Tell me about what's going on right now and where people can get more information on you.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fun conversation, and I know we could geek out on a whole bunch more. And at the same time, I know it's frustrating because it's sort of like we've scratched the surface on this possibility, but it's been a conversation. Like if you're like me, I'm the type of person that likes to see examples. Like I want to see examples to understand what this actually looks like in real life. Well, if you're listening to this or watching this right now, your timing is perfect because once a year we do something called a week-long quiz funnel workshop, where we actually take people through a process of figuring out what your quiz funnel will look like in your business. We help you come up with your topic. We help you come up with the big idea, the marketing hook, the questions that you want to ask inside the quiz funnel, how to position your offer on the back of the quiz funnel. Like I said, dozens of different examples, what traffic source to use in your business. The ticket price to attend is a $100 ticket price normally. But because Brad is awesome, he wanted to do something really special for everyone here who is a listener or a subscriber. So when you go to the link quizfunnel.com/BAM, BAM, quizfunnel.com/BAM, and you enter the coupon code BAM, it's going to take your ticket price down from $100 to nothing, free. The only catch is, again, we only do this once a year. It's happening like literally right now, right around the corner. So you do want to, take advantage of this now. And then we'll talk about in that workshop, the technology options that you have. And of course, we have a technology solution. We also have a solution where we will actually build your entire quiz funnel for you. Like our team will actually do all the technical work and set everything up for you. So if you are even remotely interested in learning how to do this and use it in your business, even if you're just curious, that's the best next step. quizfunnel.com/BAM, coupon code BAM, and we'd love to feature you as the next great success story, like the businesses that we talked about here today, and help you just crush it in your business.
I love it. So give us a couple bullets on what the workshop covers, what it's about, and what's the promise of it.
Yeah. So once again, we're going to help you come up with the topic of your quiz. We're going to help you come up with the big idea, the hook behind your quiz. We're going to help you come up with the questions for your quiz. We're going to help you talk about how you marry it and connect it to the offer that you're putting on the back of the quiz. There are 3 types of quiz funnels that you can really decide between. We're going to identify what those 3 types are and how to pick the right one for you. And again, figure out what traffic source makes the most sense. So by the end of it, you're going to have a blueprint that you're going to be able to, really have 2 options. Number one, say, all right, I've got this. I'm going to, build this, run with it. Or if you're interested, just say, like, I just want to have your team, like, build this whole thing for me, set it all up. And there'll be an opportunity to do that as well. So even if you're just curious, even if you're not, ready to say, yes, I want to do this, it is the best value for money that we certainly can offer in our business for anybody who's remotely interested or curious around setting up a quiz funnel in your business as a top of funnel strategy to acquire more leads, more customers, more clients in your business.
Awesome, man. I love it. Ryan, it's always good talking to you, man. We could definitely talk for hours here, but it is time to do other things today. Hopefully we'll get more time in Austin in the near future. And certainly we'll have people checking out the new product, the new launch, and that event. So appreciate the time, man.
Appreciate it as well, man. It's always fun to chat, and looking forward to connecting soon.
Love it. Thanks, Ryan.
If you learned one thing on this episode, share it with another entrepreneur. They need to hear it. Also subscribe so that new episodes just show up on your phone. It's a lot easier that way. And if you want the really good stuff, check out our free BAM! Tactics and Strategies course. It's where we curate the best tips, tricks, and tools that our guests know, whether they've shared them on the podcast or not. Just go to beyondamill.com. You'll also find previous episodes and show notes at beyondamill.com.